3, 2, 1.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? My name's Sam, and I'll be taking you through this webinar, and this is Annette. We'll do some proper introductions in a moment, but thank you for joining us at Ghyston, where we're going to be talking today about tech challenges to revenue opportunities for people in the public sector. So, we know, that public sector organizations are under increasing pressure to modernize services and balance incredibly difficult budget pressures. So what we've been working on with some of our private sector and public sector clients is how we can take some of the biggest technology problems and reframe them as revenue opportunities. So in this webinar, what we're going to do is, as I said, talk about our public and private organizations that we work with. We've taken problems like underused systems, legacy processes, siloed data, and turned that into valuable assets for our clients. Hopefully, you'll learn how to kind of identify untapped value in your current technology ecosystem. And we're going to talk about approaches to monetizing your software responsibly. We're going to talk about lots of case studies, and we're going to end with some practical steps. But first, I think what we'll do is we'll introduce Ghyston and talk a little bit about who we are, and we'll start with some personal introductions. So I'm Sam, I'm the sales director at Ghyston. My role is all about looking after our existing customers. I work closely with a team of 5 account managers, but I'm also tasked with finding new customers as well. And I did not realize that I dressed in the same outfit as my picture today, and that has made my morning. This is Annette.
Hello, my name's Annette Risk. I'm project manager here at Ghyston. As it sounds, I manage projects and a bit of a conduit between the delivery team and Sam's sales team.
So, who are Ghyston, and why can we talk with some authority about this space? So, we are a software consultancy, and what we do is we help organizations build software better and faster. There's that classic iron triangle of speed, quality, and price, and you can only pick 2 of those things. We sit in the space of doing high quality things and doing them quickly. So some things, if you've ever worked with outsourced software development before, we're a little bit different, and the things that make us different are the fact that we are all based in our office in Southwest, in Bristol, where we are today. It's lovely and sunny in Bristol here. So we are all in the UK and all onshore compared to other solutions which might have a small UK office and then a nearshore or offshore solution. We believe that we give the most value when we get involved early on with our clients, and we like to do that as in person as much as we can. That's how you solve complex problems. The next thing that makes us different is our focus on exceptional software engineering. So quality is incredibly important to us. So that just means high quality code, but also the way that we build things. And what we do is we take some of the brightest people from UK universities, top universities, and we train and retain them over a large number of years. So we had a company meeting last week where probably about 5 of our developers sort of celebrated their 13 years working with us. So we retain talent for a very long time and have a really high bar for what it means to be a Ghyston software engineer. The final thing is that we talk about purpose-driven innovation. So that really means 2 things for us. One, focusing on impact and making the right decisions for people and planet. So we might prioritize infrastructure decisions that are powered by renewable energy, for example, but it also means building the software correct from day one and making sure that it has longevity and that we can hand it over to the people who own the IP, which is our customers, and they can either support it themselves or support it with us. So that's a little bit about who we are. We are set up to work in public sector and with large organizations. I'll talk a little bit about some of our clients in a moment, but we primarily work with large complex organizations, and that means that we have to be very secure. We've got ISO 27001 compliance, as well as being part of the G Cloud frameworks and having security cleared consultants. And we are Microsoft and AWS partners and aligned to the government service standard WCAG 2.1 AA. In terms of why we're hosting this webinar and why we can talk with credibility, the kind of customers that we work with they fall into two groups. So they tend to be either massive organizations that are going through a huge digital transformation project, and they come to us with the most complex part of that project. So as an example, that would be someone like Warburton's or Greencore, who are the Europe's largest sandwich maker. It's not all to do with sandwiches for us, although we do work with Warburton's and Greencore, but also people like BMW, and increasingly more public sector. So we've done projects in the past with Southwark Council, as well as Hampshire County Council, and we're going to do a deep dive into our work with Hampshire today, and Annette is working on that project at the moment, so she's going to talk you through that. So we've got 13 years of experience working with large organizations navigating difficult change. So that's a little bit about who Ghyston are and who Annette and myself are. Now we wanted to talk about, how we see the current state. So what we see for public sector opportunities with technology. I was recently at a local government conference with the LGA and Tech UK, and I spoke to lots and lots of people working in the public sector and specifically at local government. And I was amazed at how a lot of the problems were very common across all organizations, and how actually there's problems in public sector are very similar to the ones that we solve in the private sector for our clients. So I thought I would talk you through what we see as the kind of top 3 issues, and then some examples in the private and public sector where we've solved them. So I mean, for us, those top 3 problems are really fragmented legacy systems, inefficient manual processes, and budget constraints. I'm aware that the people watching this webinar will know far more about the problems that you're facing than I will, so I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but I think it's a good way to show how we've organized our thinking. So we'll start with fragmented legacy systems. So according to the LGA, more than 70% of councils cite the fact that they've got old legacy software that blocks them evolving what they're doing. So that's not really surprising. Most authorities are operated in silos, and they are systems that don't use APIs, they don't talk to each other, they don't necessarily work with new technology, and people they trap you in and keep you entrenched. So you might only be using half the functionality, but you've got a long-term licensing agreement. What that means is, for these disconnected systems, it means you have to repeat yourself, but also you have siloed data that you can't necessarily pull out for insights. This is incredibly important as we move into the world of AI, where for AI to be implemented successfully, you have to have really strong uniform data and data management. So the second issue really is inefficient manual processes. So the UK government says that around half public services are still using manual processes, despite a massive push for digital transformation. So this might mean that you are doing data entry multiple times. You're having to put that in different systems in different places that aren't talking to each other. You might be managing processes on Excel spreadsheets that you've built on your team and 5 people use, or you might be using manual paper processes. We've seen a lot of these things. All in all, these efficiencies add up to wasted time and less time doing what people in the public sector really care about, which is dealing with those service users. I think this is an area where we have worked a lot, and I think that for lots of reasons, the public sector is lagging behind the private sector. So we're going to talk in a minute about a case study for a care home, a group of care homes that we did. Finally, the third key issue for us is budget constraints. I think this is probably the root cause of a lot of things, but more than 70% of councils have highlighted that budget constraints are the number one thing stopping them improving what they're doing in the digital space. And I think, we're here with some really pertinent case studies to encourage people in the public sector to think about things in a different way. And what Annette will talk about with Hampshire is really about how you can take a large problem and turn it into a potential revenue stream. So there's definitely value for you to uncover in your current tech, as well as opportunities to turn problems into revenue streams. So I'm going to talk a little bit about 2 case studies in the private sector that we've done to address those issues. So first of all is Unite students. They came to us with fragmented legacy system, their booking system, and they had challenges. It was slow, it was outdated, and it couldn't keep pace with the growth that they were facing. And also their end users were students have a high rate of tech adoption and were expecting a slick digital service. So we were partnered with them, or they partnered with Ghyston, and we built an application called Prism, which is a new cloud tenancy booking platform. The first way that we engaged with them was through workshops and focus groups. That is really a key way in which we often start our engagements across the public and private sector. What that allows us to do is talk to the end users and the stakeholders throughout the organization. So we focus on things like enhancing the user experience, reducing manual processes, making sure that it's seamlessly connected with the other technology systems that they're using. And this created a solution that was scalable for the future for Unite. So technology-wise, if anyone's really focused on technology, it was a single-page application using a Java Spring backend and a JavaScript front end. And the key to making this successful really was making sure that we used rigorous testing and continuous integration practices. In terms of results, it helped them drop their tenancy returns from 9 days to 4 days, so a huge gain in time there, and it which helped sales conversions improve through the online tenancy function. This was a key kind of part of a wider transformation project for Unite, and it became a cornerstone project that they could so they could ultimately start serving their end users in a more effective way. The next case study that I wanted to talk through is one that we're really proud of at Ghyston, and it's where we dealt with an inefficient manual process for Sanctuary Care, who are a large group of care homes. In a nutshell, they had the people who were providing the care were using a paper system. And what this did is it created a huge amount of friction during handovers at the end of each shift. So you would have to you'd finish your shift, you'd have to fill in all the paperwork of what you'd done that day and then hand it over to the next person. So it was creating a huge amount of friction, and it was taking people out of doing what they love, which is providing care. What we did, again, we started with this with a discovery phase, which is a series of workshops where we speak to the end users and really understand what the possible synergies are. This is really a key part of when it comes to building bespoke software compared to doing something off the shelf, because what you're doing is you are building software that is specific to the use case and the way that those end users are working, rather than having to go through a process of training and adapting the way that people are working to an off-the-shelf solution that you've brought in. So again, for the people who are really focused on tech on the call, we built them a mobile app. It was an iPhone app using Xamarin, supported by React and TypeScript management portal. It was designed specifically in the way that we built it with resilience in mind. So this is not, we're talking about providing care. So something going down or not working or loading slowly is not anything that Sanctuary or Ghyston could countenance. And so that's what we built, that really resilient app from day one. And the impact was amazing. So it saved, Sanctuary said that it saved 1 hour per carer per shift. So it reduced that. It saved, in terms of filling in paperwork and handing over to the next person, it meant a seamless transition, saving an hour per carer per day, which for a private organisation is a huge, monetary saving. But really importantly as well, it improved things like reporting and the quality of care. So off the back of that, the application was mentioned in the CQC outstanding kind of review of multiple care homes that Sanctuary ran. So I think this case really shows how tailored digital solutions can take something that is slow and operationally poor and make it into something that improves the lives of the service users. I'm going to hand over to Annette. She's going to do a much deeper dive into what we're doing with Hampshire County Council, because one, it's current, it's a project that's going live at the moment, and two, I think it's really relevant for the people on the call.
Thanks, Sam. Yes, so I've been working with Hampshire over the last few months on their project, which is indeed nearly coming to an end. And the crux of this project came from the new Procurement Act, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. And that was going to create massive admin burden and risk for Hampshire and probably every other council as well. And the core problem was that existing manual processes were inefficient and couldn't scale up to meet this new legal requirement for the Procurement Act. And off-the-shelf software couldn't meet the specific needs of this, particularly for public sector organisations. So Hampshire, quite rightly, wanted to find a trusted partner to work closely with to build a bespoke solution that solved the immediate challenge with the legislation, but also deliver it on time and on budget. So a big thing that often happens at the beginning of projects is the unknowns. Quite a big unknown for us was we needed to use an API from the government, and that API was incomplete. So we needed to start the project not knowing the full potential of that, but that's okay. We built that into the process and made a start. And then, yeah, our approach to the partnership. So Sam touched on this earlier. We work according to the Ghyston way. It's very much a partnership, and we very much look at the outcome, not just the output, but the actual outcome and what you need as a client. And we build the right thing in the right way. So that might mean using different technologies. Sam's already mentioned a couple of different techs that we use. So we are tech agnostic, so we use the right thing to build the right outcome. And it's also a lot of listening. So before we write even one line of code, we're listening. We do big discovery phases to really understand the process. So for Hampshire, what were their pain points? What was the long-term vision? Understand the Procurement Act. And we had many of these conversations to get the requirements right. And it wasn't them telling us what they needed and us telling them what they needed, but very much a partnership to define the best possible outcome, the timescales and the budget. So my role as project manager is to be the bridge between the technical solution we're delivering and that business outcome, and really importantly, keep that project healthy right through the process and be completely transparent of what's going on, raising risks, and making sure we're all aligned right the way through. So some of the areas we covered during this relationship, navigating the uncertainty. So I mentioned the API specification. That came out eventually, and whereas we'd written a scope that was 4 pages, it turned into 17 pages. Now, we couldn't derail that project. We had a deadline to meet. So by collaborating and keeping that transparency, we could manage that commercial impact, the planning impact, and not lose sight of the end game on the project. Also, things come up like validation rules. That sounds very boring, but how are we going to validate hundreds of rules that are coming through from the API? You could just build a rigid system and go through every single one, but actually we needed a more practical solution for that. Yes, there's some back-end validation to make sure the tool works, but make it user-friendly. make the error messages clear. There's nothing worse than seeing a message and you don't understand what you've done wrong. Clear error messages and the ability, really simply, to cancel and try again. So examples like that, making the process easy and manageable for the end users. And really understanding public sector. So one area I feel really passionate about is accessibility. We built this solution to meet WCAG 2.2 requirements. So that is not just a should do, really it's a must do. It creates a much better user experience for everybody. So the exciting bit, which probably people will be most interested in, was the kind of revolution we had. So realisation that actually this bespoke solution we'd all co-created for Hampshire, one council, is actually a repeatable, valuable solution for all councils. And as a collective team, our vision for the project expanded from just an internal tool for Hampshire to actually the potential to be a public sector SaaS product. SaaS is software as a service. We also realised that having a streamlined, user-friendly system has huge potential in the private sector. And sometimes in smaller private sector businesses, they don't have resource for procurement. So having a nice, easy system to use could really help them. So as a result of all those conversations, Hampshire saw this now as, rather than a necessary operational cost, it's actually become a dual market revenue opportunity. So the techie bit, we'd identified that opportunity. So it's really important that the underlying tech could support that vision. It's not enough to have a great idea. The platform itself needs to be practical, affordable, and really importantly, secure. So our tech team made very particular choices on the kit that they used, make sure it's cost effective and crucially scalable. We used modern cloud technology, so in this case it was AWS, to build what they call a multi-tenant architecture. So that means lots of different groups can use it. And from the ground up, that's really efficient to run. So it means new businesses, new councils could be onboarded quickly and cheaply, which is essential for the SaaS model. For any public sector tools, security is obviously really important. So the system is built following best practice. Sensitive data is isolated and protected, and the platform has passed independent penetration testing. So Hampshire have the confidence that their system and data is secure. And lastly, on the tech, we use modern, well-supported technologies. So the platform is powerful today, but it's also easy to maintain as we go into the future, and it protects the investment in the long run. You can see on screen there the tech that we used. I'm not going to read them all out, but you can see we are flexing to suit the product that we're building. So the outcome in the future. So really nice place to be. It's a really high quality bespoke system. It solves that legislation problem for Hampshire that we set out to do. They said right at the beginning they wanted improved efficiency, customization, flexibility and cost savings, and they've got it. It automates manual tasks, it reduces the chance of errors, and it is designed for good usability. They said they wanted a new car feel, and I think they're pleased to say they've got that. And it's not just functional, it has been stress tested, and Hampshire have been great at this to handle real world capacity, so real world users having real problems, and of course it's accessible. So our partnership here is really rewarding, and this is what we're great at. We've delivered a product that actually satisfies the need now, but it is flexible enough to grow and be used in the future, and of course an ongoing partnership with Hampshire. So I think the key takeaway is, and you alluded to this, Sam, these software that come up, you have a requirement, you see it as a problem you've got to solve, and it's going to cost even more money. Actually, that challenge can turn into a very nice revenue opportunity. And be seen as something very positive.
Amazing, thanks Annette. I think one of the things I love about the Hampshire case study is really there are off-the-shelf solutions for procurement out there, but with a little bit of thought and thinking outside the box, what Hampshire have been able to do is create a system that's adopted very, very, very quickly, isn't going to only satisfy 50% of their goals and cost them lots of money over many years, but it's going to become this revenue opportunity. So I think they've kind of taken a step back and been able to think of a problem in a kind of first principles way, which I think is great. So we've spoken a lot now about the core challenges, and we've shared some case studies about private and public sector. I'm aware that people on the webinar will have they'll have their own views about what the big problems are. So I'd love to see some questions coming in around that. And if you've got any questions for Annette specifically on the Hampshire project or myself, please do submit them and we'll deal with them at the end. I'm conscious of time, so I'll move through really. We wanted to end on some practical places where you can begin, because I'm aware that something like the approach that they've taken, it is a really it's quite it requires buy-in from multiple stakeholders. It's a big project, so where can you start? And I think really it's about identifying the value that you already have. As a sales director, I probably shouldn't be saying that you're sat on lots of value within your current tech stack, but I really think a good place to start is auditing what you already have. So with the democratization of technology, excuse me, away from IT departments where there's lots and lots of SaaS solutions out there that are low cost, what we've seen across the public and private sector is people having all of these different platforms, and quite often we see within organizations they have duplication across what they need. So starting with an audit of how your current technology is a really good place to start, and you could identify a few dormant assets that you can utilize for multiple needs across multiple functions. So an audit is a great place to start. Next, I think you have to also, I'd say about auditing, it's not just your technology you need to audit. You can audit the way that your processes are working as well, and who's actually using this technology. So next, I think assessing your data quality is essential. I've alluded to, at this local government conference, AI was being touted as the solution for a lot of problems, and I'm sure it will, but without that foundational piece of great quality data, AI will not be able to work effectively. So assessing your data quality, so how are systems talking to each other, do you have lots and lots of different types of data in one place, or spread around everywhere, or do you have something that's actually quite structured, and if not, how do you build something that's quite structured? I think that what Hampshire have shown is an ability for local authorities to really shift their organizational mindset. Investing in technology is expensive, and that holds a lot of people back. But if you start to think about it as a value generator rather than a cost center, then especially if you're thinking about this, if perhaps you're a smaller council than Hampshire, maybe you need to partner up with others. But this could be thinking about that way of technology as a value creator rather than just a cost. I think it's a really good way of starting to think. And finally, I think this is important for all organizations, but developing your in-house expertise in technology is really important. Outsourcing technology entirely is not really an option anymore, because technology is not a siloed thing. It's not a department. It's across everything. And the way that we engage with many of our customers is to have a blended team, which is led by Ghyston technologists and developers as well, and they lead on technical expertise and best practice, and it's a combined team with our customers' development teams as well, and then they're providing the domain knowledge, and that's where we really deliver our most value. In terms of getting started, I wanted just to share the way that we normally work with people and focus on that green consultancy area where we can do both an audit or a discovery. Annette spoke about how Hampshire began with a thorough discovery process, which is really a series of workshops. We talk about ideation, which is where we link the high-level problem, where we start to identify what that is and talk about solutions, and we work that through into different stages of feasibility and foundation, and then onto MVP. That is key for making sure that we don't fall into the biggest trap with technology, which is the biggest risk is building the wrong thing. And if people jump into a large project straight away, then what can happen is you get 6 months down the line and you say, well, we built this feature and no one's going to use it, or we haven't done this and it's a clear route forward. The other way in which we start often is an audit, which can be an audit of your processes or your existing technology, or a single software project. I think we're running out of time now. So I would encourage anyone who's got any questions to put them now, and hopefully we can spend some time answering them. Alternatively, my email address is up there, was also hello@Ghyston.com is another route to get in touch. But thank you very much. I hope that you found that interesting. Essentially, what we're saying is that through our work in the public and private sector, Ghyston has seen that bespoke software can be a solution for the common problems of fragmented legacy systems, slow manual processes, and budget constraints, if the public sector and local authorities can start to think about that investment as an investment in a potential revenue stream rather than just an outbound cost. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day.